I've said it before, I'll say it again. The hairier Chuck Norris is, the better the movie's gonna be. Okay, everybody, today we're going all the way back to 1979 to look at the heyday of what I consider the Chuck Norris career. You know, 79 to 83, 84, that kind of shit. We are talking about the one and only, A Force of One. But before we go any further, before we dig into that any more, once again, and as always, to the trailer.
A Force of One. What happened forces Jennifer O'Neill into black belt action. With Chuck Norris, Phil Wallace, Gulager, Ron O'Neill, and one whole city's police force.
We can stand 10 feet away and dust him off with a piece, right?
Unless the killer hit before they saw him. I mean, an expert in martial arts, hand-to-hand combat. Somebody who could kill with their bare hands and not leave a mark.
A Force of One. It starts with a routine search. It ends with a trail of bodies.
We got smack, we got coke, we got uppers, we got downers, we got acids, we got pot, we got angel dust. We got it. I think the guy was falling.
The junkies are having a field day, and the cops are out in force. But in this business, you need eyes in the back of your head.
The bruises is so deep that there was internal hemorrhage. In other words, they strangled in their own blood.
Lieutenant, there's an epidemic going on.
Whoever did this is as good as dead.
The whole essence of what we do is a philosophy of discipline.
A Force of One. A blue steel force that beats out the bad guys' guns and knives. A Force of One. He's got to make his next shot his best shot, as he doesn't get another chance. A Force of One. He hears the silence. He sees the darkness. He's the only one who can stop the killing. Jennifer O'Neill, Chuck Norris, in A Force of One.
Okay, this motion picture was directed by Paul Aaron. You gonna recognize the name? Absolutely not. You gonna care? Absolutely not. But he did a few things. We're talking about he did things like A Different Story, an Imperial Navy, and Deadly Force, and Maxie, and TV movies. You know, The Miracle Worker, Thin Ice, In Love and War, Untamed Love. Not a big career, but he was on the scene, working, and doing some shit. There you go. Alright everybody, this motion picture actually has a pretty fun and cool cast for a ha-ha type movie from the late 70s. Let's get to it. Let's get going. Playing Matt Logan, you got the one and only Chuck Norris. We're talking about stuff like Lone Wolf McQuade and Breaker Breaker and The Octagon, An Eye for an Eye, Silent Rage, Firewalker, Good Guys Wear Black, Invasion USA, Missing in Action, Code of Silence, Sidekicks, on TV, Walker, Texas Ranger, Part MY. Playing Mandy, you got the one and only Jennifer O'Neill. She was in Rio Lobo and Summer of 42 and Steel and The Psychic and Scanners and The Innocent and Lady Ice and Whiffs and Glass Houses and Cloud Dancer and on TV, you know, Cover Up, Bare Essence. Clue, yeah, playing the chief of police, you got Clue Gulager, come on! Return of the Living Dead, Feast, The Last Picture Show, McHugh, every TV show you could ever imagine, from Wagon Train to The Virginian to The Tall Man to Ironside, The Police Story, you name it, he was there. Playing Rollins, You got Ron O'Neal. No relation to Jennifer O'Neal, although you might find their physical appearance strikingly similar. We're talking about he was in stuff like Superfly, TNT, The Final Countdown, Red Dawn, St. Helens, Hero and the Terror, and TV, Living Single, Murder, She Wrote, Werewolf, Frank's Place, Bring 'Em Back Alive. Playing Charlie, you got Eric Laneuville. I can never pronounce it right, so I'm sorry, man. No disrespect. Anyway, became a very successful director in his own right. But as far as acting, we're talking St. Elsewhere, Hill Street Blues, The White Shadow, Shazam, Sanford and Son, Room 222, Police Story, ER. Playing Sparks, the one and the only Bill Superfoot Wallace, former world champ. You come on, Fight to Win, Kill Point, LA Street Fighters, Manchurian Avenger, Silent Assassins, Sword of Heaven, The Protector, and you have some other people popping up, and we're talking about people like Ray Vitte, we're talking about Pepe, Serna, we're talking about Charles Cyphers. So, there are a whole bunch of faces and names that you are going to get a kick of. Oh, by the way, man, Aaron Norris is in this thing, and Pat Johnson is in this thing. He helped to write it. You're going to remember him from The Karate Kid. And there's other faces that pop up, too. You know, from the Police Academy movies and shit like that. Whatever. There's people in this. Anyway, let's get back on track. Let's get going to the story. Okay, everybody, I'm going to try to do this in 60 seconds less. I can share, keep fast, keep it entertaining, keep it moving, so we can get to the place where we spend our most time. The summation. Anyway, the motion picture starts out, you see this kid on a skateboard, a couple cops in a car, and the cops are like, yo, I know that kid. He's always into some kind of shit. Let's follow him. So they follow him to this like sporting goods store, and they go in there and they're like looking around, but they haven't radioed it in, they haven't gotten any warrants, they haven't done anything by the book, they're just kind of operating on their own. And while they're in there looking around, all of a sudden a mannequin comes to life and starts doing ninjutsu shit on them and beats the living shit out of these guys. Kills both of them. Dead. What are you going to do? Next thing you know, the cops are all having a meeting about this situation. It's like, hey man, something happened to our boys. Somebody killed our boys. Nobody used a weapon. What's going on? And of course, the police just come to the conclusion that this must be somebody who is skilled and we have to start digging into that just to see what's going on. Before you know it, you're in another scene in the motion picture where Chuck Norris is in the ring. You're fighting. You get to meet the Matt Logan doing his business, and you get to watch him in a fight. He's a title fighter. He's the middleweight kickboxing champion of the world. You get the idea. Let's keep rolling. Anyway, the cops ask for one Matt Logan to help them. They're like, hey man, we're trying to figure out some shit here. We're trying to get an idea what's going on. We think our killer might be a karate guy. We want you to teach our people self-defense. Matt Logan just doesn't really give a shit. He's like, not my problem. Not into it. They're like, come on, bro. He's like, no, not my problem. But then he goes into a story with this really hot female cop, one Jennifer O'Neal, looking sweet as ever, even though she's got the world's worst haircut. And he starts telling her about, well, I've seen the dirty part of the world. I've seen the streets. I've seen all the horrible things. He goes, my son, his mother was an addict. And she's like, oh, shit. I know you had a son. Your wife was an addict. He's like, no, baby, no. He was just this kid. He was taking karate classes. His mom was an addict. She died. I adopted him. Now I got this kid. And she's like, I want to meet this kid. And he's like, all right, yeah, whatever. Next thing you know, she stops off. She goes, I got to make a quick pit stop. And she goes in and she does a bust where she finds this young 15-year-old girl being pimped out to this fucking scumbag by this scumbag fucking pimp. And Chuck Norris throws that dude an ass whooping. Oh, after that, he goes home. He's working out. And the visions of that shit's going through his head. And he's getting Chuck Norris pissed. And he calls up the people and he says, yo, I am in. Even though his like secretary helper Harriett and his son are like, come on man, you ain't got time for that kind of shit. You're training for a title fight. You can't be doing that. And that's where you get to meet the rest of the cast of characters that he works with. Blah, blah, blah. Let's keep moving. So he trains the police. It is what it is. Move forward. The cops are chasing another skateboarder. Not really chasing him, kind of like spying on him. A couple of those cops that he was like, just getting to meet and all this other kind of shit. Whatever. Anyway, they go in there and lo and behold, again, they get killed by the same ninja who just likes hanging around warehouses and sporting goods stores. It is what it is. Kind of strange. Yeah, I know. Anyway, Chuck Norris is training the police officers and all this other kind of shit. And then, like he says to the female cop afterwards, Jennifer O'Neal, hey, you're kind of fly hot. Let's just go to a match together and you can see what's going on. You can meet some of the people. You can get kind of on the scene. And she's like, yeah, sure, whatever. She goes there. She meets the one and only Bill Superfoot Wallace, who's kind of a schmuck, but with a bit of a charm. And his son is there, and he's just hitting on chicks. It is what it is. You get the idea. Well, shortly after that, oh my God, they find the two police officers that were killed by the ninja in the clothing department. And everybody's like, holy shit, it's happened again. Anyway, Jennifer Neal is really upset. She's all heartbroken. Her friends are dead. And Chuck Norris is like, hey, I can take you for a walk on the beach or something. Get your mind off of this kind of shit. It is what it is. I don't want you sitting here depressed. Well, there you go. Next thing you know, you see Chuck Norris, he's training again, and he's working out. He's doing some sparring with his son, and his son is like doing fairly well. But his son's really mad because he wants to be a professional fighter. And Chuck Norris is like, I don't know if you're ready yet. His son gets kind of pissed. So Chuck Norris whoops his son's ass in sparring to kind of teach him a lesson. They hug, they make up, everything's okay, whatever it is. Shortly after that, you find out that Chuck Norris is going to get involved in looking into the martial arts community, digging into seeing maybe one of his boys or their community's boys are doing all this killing. So he goes and talks to some of the guys in the community. And you find out that these guys in this martial arts community are all special forces guys that were in Vietnam, and they were all trained killers, and now they just moved into the world of, kickboxing, and that's what they do. Hey, whatever. Anyway, his son starts talking to some of the other fighters in the community. And one of the guys that just actually fought Sparks says to him, hey man, I think that guy was on something when I was fighting. He was like filled with anger or rage. I would have swore he was doping up. So his son goes, holy shit, man, this might be something fucking crazy. I'm going to call Dad. Calls Dad, can't get a hold of him, leaves a message. But he's going to go do some investigating on his own. So he drives up to this house where you find out that, oh my God, Ron O'Neal is there, and he's a dirty cop. And Billy Sparks is there, supposedly training in overalls, looking like he just got done working on the farm, but we won't get into that. Anyway, so the son is watching this whole thing go down. He's seeing the deal, he knows the talks. Before you know it, poof, Jerry Sparks catches him. Yes, that's true. And he says, hey man, why did you have to come and investigate this shit? I'm going to give you one shot. You can kick my ass, you can get out of here. That doesn't happen. Billy Sparks, or Jerry Sparks, whatever the fuck his name is in this motion picture, kills the kid. Not very cool. Well, right after that, Chuck Norris is going to dinner with the one and only Jennifer O'Neal. And while he's going to that thing, he gets attacked in the parking lot by one Billy Sparks or Jerry Sparks or Bill Wallace or whatever the fuck. And they have a fight, but some waiters come out. So, Bill Wallace takes off. And then he goes into the restaurant to meet up with the girl. And he's like, oh yeah, I got to go home. I got to get cleaned up. But soon we find out a phone call is made. And yes, they find the dead body of his son. And they try to make it look like he's been injecting needles and doing heroin. That's how they're going to cover up the murder. But Chuck Norris ain't buying that shit. He's like, my kid would never do that kind of shit. This is a plant. This is a situation. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. Next thing you know, Jennifer O'Neal and some of the cops, they just start really rousing these skateboarders, because that's how the drugs and shit are getting around, because skateboarders are delivering it. Whatever, you get the idea. Anyway, they start rousing them. One of them rats out the company and says, ho, a lot of this shit is going down at this one sporting goods store. It is what it is. So Jennifer O'Neal and this other guy go to the sporting goods store, and they run into Ron O'Neal on his way out. And that kind of tips her off. She's like, that's fucking odd. Why is this guy coming out of here? So she goes back to the chief of police. She says, chief of police, clue. Hey, I think there's something dirty going on in the police force. And he's like, yeah, you better have some evidence before you bring up some kind of crazy shit like that. It is what it is. Well, anyway, later that night, Chuck Norris is about to have his big title match, and she says, let me pick up his secretary and go do some investigating on my fellow cop, Ron O'Neal, Superfly T, and motherfucking T himself, and I'm going to go digging around his apartment, where she finds, oh my God, there's a lab of drug shit going on. And she and the secretary beat up this one guy. Now she runs off to the match to see what's going on in the fight. In the middle of the fight that they're having, oh my God, Chuck Norris realizes that his man Sparks is the same guy from the alleyway that jumped him outside the restaurant. What the fuck is going on? And Billy, how he's called Jerry Sparks, Bill Wallace, I can't help it. Anyway, he jumps out the ring, goes running away to get away from the whole situation. The dirty cop Ron O'Neal is out there, all the other cops come and arrest him, and now Chuck Norris goes chasing after Bill Wallace so that they can have a big fight after a car chase. Of course, Jennifer O'Neal is with him in this. Takes place in the hills of what looks like California, and there is a final battle of the fucking brawn. Call it whatever you want. I don't care. That's the whole movie. I'm not going to tell you who wins. I mean, come on. I'm not going to tell you exactly what happens. Come on. But you get the idea. There it is, in a nutshell. Let's just get going. Okay, everybody, does A Force of One work? Actually, yes. For what it is, a fairly low-budget karate movie from the late 70s. Does it work? Yes. Is it perfect? No. But for the kind of motion picture it is, I think it lands and punches way above its pay grade. Let's get the big three out of the way. The directing, believe it or not, for a guy with really doesn't have that big of a career or anything like that, at least one that's very well known, Aaron does a pretty good job on this thing. The movie is actually shot fairly well. It looks fairly good. It's done tightly and concisely. The movie's only 90 minutes, so they moved it right along, so it looks good. It's paced well. Directing, really no problem. Writing, I mean, come on. Come on. It's a karate, kickboxing, drug espionage, revenge movie. That's all you need to know. The writing, though, is good enough for that. Plot holes, yes, but the writing and the dialogue, simple, straightforward, good enough, we're there. And the acting. All right, let's knock off the shit. We know Chuck Norris is not a dynamic actor, especially at this point of his career. Is what it is. But the rest of the cast, Jennifer O'Neill, solid. Clue, fucking great. Ron O'Neill, on point. I mean, everybody in this thing really delivers a solid package. So, the acting, again, for this kind of motion picture, and again, excusing Chuck Norris's lack of dynamic range at this point, they actually did an incredibly solid job. Now, why does this motion picture work? Well, let's knock off the shit. It delivers on what it's supposed to basically deliver on. For martial artists and shit, or anybody fans of that kind of stuff, this movie was kind of a fever dream to run into. I mean, you got Chuck Norris, you got Bill Wallace, you got Pat Johnson floating around, you got the whole kickboxing vibe community thing taking place. It was a fun motion picture. But taking own biases aside, still, it delivers on what it's supposed to deliver on. It never bogs down. It never gets slow. There's just enough action and just enough dialogue at the right pacing to keep it a decent, solid flick. Is it the greatest motion picture ever? Obviously not. But when you go into a motion picture with the expectations of, I'm going to see this kind of flick, it delivers well. It delivers by far good enough, and it gives you everything that you could want. Decent acting. The fight scenes are solid. And let me point something out too. This is when fight scenes in motion pictures were a little bit hokey at times, a little bit more believable at times, because the shit that they do in movies now is just fucking ridiculous. You know what I mean? There's guys like kicking 3 guys in the air and then doing back triple spins. And it's fucking nuts. But back then, they tried to keep it just a little bit more rooted, a little bit more grounded. And yes, even though you see, Jerry Sparks delivering like a chop to somebody's back while half airborne, like jumping up and down like he's in a wrestling ring, okay, you have those moments. But the rest of it, they do their best to make it look at least somewhat plausible. Now, are there negatives to this motion picture? Of course there's negatives to this motion picture. One, the plot line is fucking ridiculous. I mean, let's just be honest. The fact that Bill Wallace just lurks around this ski store goddamn warehouse, killing cops whenever they enter it, and then when he's not doing that, is hanging out in the alleyways, descending on people like fucking Spider-Man, dressed like a ninja, trying to attack people, is pretty far-fetched. He's supposed to be a top-ranked fighter. He's supposed to be this big, respectable guy in the community, and he's not really training that much. He's just running around, ninja-kicking cops, and doing silly shit. Yeah, okay, he got himself a drug habit, but that's a fucking pretty goddamn extreme way to take it to. I mean, yes, the idea of the story itself is far-fetched, but it's a fucking karate movie. Get over it. And the idea that suddenly everybody who ever took martial arts had to come from the special forces in this motion picture. I mean, it's just like, come the fuck on. You know what I mean? Can't they just be normal dudes? Can't they be? They all had to be Vietnam vets that were special forces guys that all wound up in the martial arts community and all that. I understand that actually people that did spend time overseas did partake and bring it all back to the States and all that kind of, I get it. I know the history. I'm one of them people. I am. For years of it. I don't want to get into it. Anyway, but I'm just saying, does everybody in the movie have to be a special forces guy? Come on. And finally, why in all these movies do the police always have to never tell anybody what they're up to or what they're doing? I get it. it's a motion picture. But much like, should I say, something like, Rapid Fire, where all the cops are just kind of like hanging out in bowling alleys and never telling the commandos what they're doing, and every day of their life is just like this Wild West show where nobody's answering to anybody. Doesn't anybody just radio the fuck in saying, we're going to go investigate this warehouse, or we're going to do this, or we're doing that, and they're all just flying from the cuff? I know without it, you don't have a movie. I get it. But damn, can't they think of some way around that? It's in every goddamn movie. It's all the time, every time. And after a while, you're just like, fucking, is it really that much of a Wild West show? Anyway, everybody, get out there and look at A Force of One. As I've told you before, I'm very partial to the early career of Chuck Norris. A Force of One, Silent Rage, Good Guys Wear Black, all that kind of stuff. You know what I'm talking about? The Octagon. Before the Braddocks and the Missing Action, and before it just got Invasion USA and crazied out. That is my era of Chuck Norris. That's the timeline that I like. I like the early ones. And I think this is a good representation of that period in time. It's got an earthiness to it, a grit to it. Yes, preposterous and all this other kind of shit. But it gets kind of forgotten about largely. It kind of gets talked about very little. And I don't understand why. It's actually a solid, decent motion picture that tries to give a solid story that is in the process of building up the next martial arts superstar of the era. You had Lee, and after Lee, it was handed to Norris. Or not handed to, he earned it. You know what I'm saying. But that's the way it went. And for years, Chuck was your guy until, at least in the American market, until later on when you had your Van Dams or your Seagulls and all those fucking guys came crawling in. But at that moment in time, this is the beginning of Chuck going into and becoming the martial arts star in the United States or European or whatever, American market, call it what you want. Good representation of a flick, a solid movie, not as crazy as the shit that came later, but it delivers. Straightforward, moves well, paced well, decent fight scenes. For what it is, punches above its pay grade. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Or if you've seen it, leave a comment. Well, anyway, be good. Take care. Stay out of trouble. Be kind to a stranger. Be there for a friend. And more than anything else, never, and I mean never, take any bullshit from anybody. See you soon.